The email arrived at 7:23 a.m., just as Olivia Chen was stirring honey into her green tea. The subject line made her stomach clench. Schedule change. Meeting with Renee at 9 a.m. She stared at her phone, the ceramic mug warm against her palms. These sudden meetings with her boss never meant good news. In the 2 years she'd worked at Meridian Marketing, Renee Johnson had developed a reputation for delivering bad news with surgical precision, usually before most people had finished their first cup of coffee. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Olivia set down her tea and scrolled through her calendar. The Hartwell campaign presentation wasn't until Thursday. The quarterly reviews weren't due for another week. She'd submitted the Rodriguez analysis yesterday ahead of schedule as always. What could possibly require an emergency meeting? Her phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. Did you get the meeting email too? What did you do? 3 question marks. That was Aisha's way of saying she was genuinely worried. Olivia typed back, no idea. See you there, I guess. The morning commute felt longer than usual, every red light stretching into eternity. Olivia found herself gripping the steering wheel tighter as she navigated the familiar streets of suburban Chicago. The office building came into view, all glass and steel reflecting the October sky. She'd always loved this building, loved the way it made her feel professional and accomplished. Today, it looked imposing, almost threatening. The elevator ride to the 14th floor gave her just enough time to run through every possible scenario. Budget cuts, restructuring. Had she missed something important in the Rodriguez analysis, she double-checked every number, every projection. What could possibly require an emergency meeting? Her phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. Did you get the meeting email too? What did you do? 3 question marks. That was Aisha's way of saying she was genuinely worried. Olivia typed back, no idea. See you there, I guess. The morning commute felt longer than usual, every red light stretching into eternity. Olivia found herself gripping the steering wheel tighter as she navigated the familiar streets of suburban Chicago. The office building came into view, all glass and steel, reflecting the October sky. She'd always loved this building, loved the way it made her feel professional and accomplished. Today, it looked imposing, almost threatening. The elevator ride to the 14th floor gave her just enough time to run through every possible scenario. Budget cuts, restructuring. Had she missed something important in the Rodriguez analysis? She double-checked every number, every projection. Aisha was waiting by the elevator bank, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by something closer to concern. Any theories? She asked as they walked toward the conference room. None that makes sense, Olivia replied, smoothing down her navy blazer. She'd chosen it specifically because Renee had once complimented it during a successful campaign launch. The conference room felt cavernous with just the 3 of them. Renee sat at the head of the polished table, her platinum hair pulled back in its signature chignon, fingers steepled in front of her. She looked up as they entered, and Olivia caught something in her expression that made her chest tighten. Disappointment? Frustration? Olivia, Aisha, please sit. Renee's voice carried that particular tone that meant she was about to deliver news she'd rather not give. I'm afraid we need to discuss some concerns that have come to my attention. Olivia's hands went cold. Concerns? Renee opened a manila folder and pulled out what looked like printed emails. I've received several reports about your conduct and reliability. Apparently, there have been instances of missed deadlines, unprofessional behavior with clients, and what one source described as self-serving decision-making that puts personal advancement ahead of team success. The words hit Olivia like physical blows. I'm sorry, what? Who said that? The sources wish to remain anonymous for now, but they've provided specific examples. The Hendricks account meeting, where you allegedly arrived 20 minutes late and unprepared. The Morrison project, where you supposedly took credit for ideas that weren't yours. And, most recently, your handling of the Westfield campaign, which multiple people have described as careless and self-promotional. Olivia's mind raced. The Hendricks meeting. She'd been early, not late. She'd sat in the lobby for 15 minutes reviewing her notes. The Morrison project ideas were hers. She had the email threads to prove it. And the Westfield campaign had been one of her most successful projects in months. Renee, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. None of this is accurate. I have documentation. I'm sure you believe that, Olivia. Renee's tone carried a note of what sounded almost like pity. But when multiple sources corroborate the same story, I have to take it seriously. Multiple sources? Olivia looked at Aisha, who seemed as stunned as she felt. Can you at least tell me who's making these claims? I have a right to know my accusers. The sources were promised confidentiality. What I can tell you is that these reports came from people who work closely with you, people who have your best interests at heart, but are concerned about the direction you're heading. People who work closely with her. The phrase echoed in her mind. Her team was small, tight-knit. Marcus from HR occasionally sat in on our meetings. Tanya from the competing team rarely interacted with her projects. Who could possibly? The bottom line, Renee continued, is that I can't have team members who aren't reliable, who put their own interests ahead of the company's effective. Immediately, you're being moved to a supporting role on the Henderson team. Tanya will be taking over your current accounts. The room spun slightly. Supporting role. Tanya Abebe, who'd been gunning for Olivia's position since the day she'd started. Tanya, who smiled sweetly during team meetings while subtly undermining everyone else's ideas. This has to be a mistake, Olivia managed. My performance reviews have been excellent. The Rodriguez account exceeded projections by 15%. The Westfield campaign won the regional award last month. Past performance doesn't excuse current behavior, Renee said firmly. I'm hoping this reassignment will give you time to reflect on your priorities and demonstrate that you can be a team player. Aisha finally found her voice. Renee, I work with Olivia every day. I've never seen any of the behavior you're describing. She's one of the most professional, dedicated people I know. I appreciate your loyalty, Aisha, but this decision has been made. Renee closed the folder with a sharp snap. Olivia, please clean out your office by the end of the week. Tanya will need the space. Clean out her office. The office with the window view she'd earned through 2 years of 60-hour weeks and successful campaigns. The office where she'd celebrated her first major client win, where she'd worked late into the night perfecting presentations that had earned the company hundreds of thousands in revenue. I'd like to file a formal complaint, Olivia said, her voice steadier than she felt. This is based on false information. You're welcome to speak with Marcus in HR, but I should warn you that he's already reviewed the situation. This isn't a disciplinary action, technically speaking. It's a restructuring decision based on team dynamics and performance concerns. Team dynamics, performance concerns. The corporate euphemisms felt like another slap. Olivia stood slowly, her legs unsteady. May I have copies of these reports? If someone is spreading false information about me, I need to see exactly what they're claiming. I'm afraid the reports contain sensitive information and identifying details. For the privacy of the sources, I can't share them. Privacy of the sources. People who had stabbed her in the back were being protected while her career was being destroyed based on lies she wasn't even allowed to see? This is insane, Aisha muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Aisha, Renee's voice carried a warning. I'd be careful about how you handle this situation. Team loyalty is important, but so is professional judgment. The threat was subtle, but clear. Support Olivia too vocally, and Aisha might find herself in a similar position. Olivia gathered what remained of her dignity and stood. I'll speak with Marcus today. Of course, HR is there to help with transitions like this. Transitions like this, as if having your career sabotaged by anonymous sources was just another corporate growing pain. The walk back to her office felt like a funeral march. She could feel eyes following her, conversations stopping as she passed. News traveled fast in their open office layout. By lunch, everyone would know that Olivia Chen had been demoted, that Tanya Abebe was moving up to take her place. She closed her office door and sank into her chair, staring at the awards on her wall. The Westfield campaign recognition, the quarterly excellence certificate, the team leadership commendation from last spring, all of it meaningless now, apparently. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Hey cousin, heard you work at Meridian. Small world. Let's grab coffee soon. Minus Leo. Leo Martinez.
her cousin on her mother's side, whom she hadn't seen since her aunt's funeral 3 years ago. How had he gotten her number? And how did he know where she worked? Another text appeared. Actually, funny story, I'm in the lobby right now. Thought I'd surprise you. Can you come down? I have some time before my next meeting. Olivia stared at the message. Of all the days for an unexpected family visit, this had to be the worst possible timing. But Leo was family, and her mother had raised her to never turn away family, no matter how inconvenient the timing. The elevator ride down felt endless. She spotted Leo immediately in the lobby. He looked older than she remembered, his dark hair shorter, his face fuller. He was wearing an expensive-looking suit and checking his phone with the air of someone important and busy. "Olivia!" he beamed when he saw her, opening his arms for a hug. "God, you look great! Corporate life suits you." "Leo, hi." She accepted the hug, inhaling his cologne, something expensive and unfamiliar. "What brings you to Meridian?"
Business meeting, actually. I'm in consulting now, helping companies optimize their workforce strategies. He gestured around the lobby with obvious appreciation. Beautiful building. You must love working here. It's been good, she said carefully. No need to mention that her career had just imploded upstairs. I was hoping we could catch up. I know it's been too long since we've really talked. Leo's smile was warm, familiar. Maybe grab some lunch. I'm buying. The last thing Olivia wanted was to make small talk over sandwiches, but something about Leo's presence felt stabilizing after the morning's chaos. Family, someone who'd known her before performance reviews and office politics. Sure, she heard herself saying. There's a place around the corner. The cafe was crowded with the usual lunch rush, but they found a table near the window. Leo ordered with the confidence of someone accustomed to expense accounts, while Olivia picked out a salad she didn't really want. So tell me everything, Leo said, leaning forward with apparent interest. How long have you been at Meridian? You love it there, right? Moving up the ladder? There was something odd about his enthusiasm, something that felt rehearsed. But maybe she was just being paranoid after the morning's ambush. 2 years. It's been challenging, but rewarding. That's what I heard. Really impressive, actually. Second-generation immigrant, climbing the corporate ladder through pure talent and hard work. It's inspiring. Heard from whom? Olivia hadn't discussed her career with any extended family members recently. Her parents knew where she worked, but they rarely talked to Leo's side of the family. How's your consulting work going? She asked, deflecting. Leo's face lit up. Really well, actually. I specialize in organizational analysis, identifying inefficiencies, problem employees, that sort of thing. It's fascinating work, and companies pay well for honest assessments. Problem employees. The phrase echoed something from Renee's meeting. Organizational analysis sounded suspiciously like the kind of corporate speak that accompanied restructuring decisions. What kind of companies do you work with? All kinds. Marketing firms, tech companies, financial services. I actually just finished a project not far from here. It's rewarding work, helping companies identify issues before they become major problems. A cold suspicion began forming in Olivia's chest. Leo, can I ask you something? Of course. How did you get my number, and how did you know I worked at Meridian? Leo's pause was barely perceptible, but Olivia caught it. Your mom mentioned it last time we talked, and I think I got your number from Aunt Rose's address book. Her mother hadn't spoken to Leo in months, as far as Olivia knew, and Aunt Rosa had been dead 3 years. Right, Olivia said slowly. When did you talk to my mom? Another pause, longer this time. Maybe a few weeks ago? You know how family is. Everyone keeps in touch. Everyone keeps in touch. Except Leo had never been the type to keep in touch. He'd missed family gatherings, forgotten birthdays, disappeared for months without explanation. Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. Emergency. Call me ASAP. She excused herself and stepped outside to call. Where are you? Aisha's voice was tight with anger. I just overheard Tanya talking to someone about your accounts. She knew about the reassignment before the meeting this morning. What do you mean? I mean, she was already planning how to handle your clients. She had transition documents prepared. This whole thing was decided days ago, maybe weeks. Olivia's mind raced.
If Tanya had known in advance, that meant the anonymous reports weren't spontaneous concerns from worried colleagues. They were calculated attacks designed to remove her from her position. Did you hear anything else?
Just that whoever provided the information about you was very thorough. They had details about meetings, conversations, even your schedule patterns. This person had access to your day-to-day work. Someone with access to her work. Someone who knew her schedule, her projects, her client interactions. Someone who could twist innocent moments into damaging narratives. Olivia looked back through the cafe window at Leo, who was checking his phone with a slight smile. Leo, who'd appeared out of nowhere on the same day her career had been destroyed. Leo, who worked in organizational analysis and specialized in identifying problem employees. Leo, who'd somehow gotten her personal information and known exactly where to find her. "I'll call you back," she told Aisha. When she returned to the table, Leo looked up with that same warm smile. "Everything okay?" "Fine, just work stuff." Olivia sat down slowly, studying his face. "Leo, I have to ask, have you ever done any consulting work for Meridian Marketing?" "Meridian? No, I don't think so. Why?" "Just curious. You mentioned working with marketing firms." "Right, yeah, lots of different companies." Leo's phone buzzed and he glanced at it. "Actually, I should probably head out soon, but before I go, I was hoping to ask you a favor." Here it comes, Olivia thought, the real reason for this surprise visit. "I'm looking to make a career change, maybe get into marketing. I was wondering if you might be willing to put in a good word for me at Meridian, maybe help me get an interview?" Olivia stared at him. After destroying her career with lies and manipulation, he was asking her to help him get a job at her company. The audacity was breathtaking. "You want me to recommend you for a position at Meridian?" "I know it's a big ask, but we're family, right? And I have all this consulting experience that could be really valuable to a marketing firm." Family. The word tasted bitter now. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone last week, reminding her to always help family no matter what. Her mother, who had no idea that her nephew was a snake who just destroyed her daughter's future. "Let me think about it," Olivia said carefully. "Of course, take your time." Leo stood and pulled out his wallet, leaving cash on the table. "It's so good to reconnect, Olivia. I've missed having family around." He hugged her goodbye, and Olivia forced herself not to recoil from the contact. As she watched him walk away, pulling out his phone to make a call, she felt something shift inside her. The shock and confusion from the morning were crystallizing into something sharper and more focused. She'd been betrayed by someone who shared her blood, someone who smiled at family gatherings and called her cousin while systematically destroying her reputation. And now he expected her gratitude and help? Leo Martinez had made a serious mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how much fight was left in Olivia Chen. Olivia spent the rest of the afternoon in a strange, focused calm that felt like the eye of a hurricane. She sat in her office, soon to be Tanya's office, and began methodically documenting everything she could remember about the past few weeks. Every meeting Leo could have observed, every conversation he might have overheard, every detail about her work that had been twisted into the accusations Renee had leveled against her. The Hendricks meeting where she had allegedly arrived late and unprepared. She pulled up her calendar and cross-referenced it with her email timestamps. She had sent a follow-up note to the client at 9:47 a.m., 15 minutes after the meeting had officially started. But her phone showed a photo she had taken of the client's business card at 9:23. She had been early, not late. But how would Leo know about that meeting at all? It wasn't on any shared calendar, wasn't mentioned in any company-wide communications. Her phone buzzed with the text from Aisha. "Can you meet at Murphy's after work? I found something." Murphy's was their usual happy hour spot, a dim Irish pub 3 blocks from the office where the music was loud enough to cover sensitive conversations, and the bartender minded his own business. Olivia arrived first and claimed a corner booth, ordering a whiskey neat that she had no intention of drinking. The alcohol felt wrong, somehow, like she needed to keep her mind sharp for whatever was coming. Aisha arrived 20 minutes later, looking around nervously before sliding into the opposite seat. She pulled out her phone and placed it face down on the table. I did some digging, she said without preamble, asked some questions, checked some records. What kind of records? Visitor logs, security footage, email trails. Aisha leaned forward, lowering her voice even though the nearest table was empty. Your cousin has been to the building 4 times in the past 3 weeks. Olivia felt her stomach drop. 4 times? September 23rd, September 30th, October 7th, and today. Each time, he signed in as a consultant meeting with someone in HR. Marcus. That's what I thought too, but when I casually asked Marcus about recent consulting work, he said they haven't brought in any external consultants in months. The whiskey sat untouched as Olivia processed this information. Leo had been lying to building security, gaining access under false pretenses. But that meant someone else was facilitating his visits, someone with enough authority to bypass normal security protocols. Did you check the footage? That's the interesting part. There's a gap in the hallway cameras for October 7th, supposedly a technical malfunction, and the lobby footage from that day is corrupted. Too convenient to be coincidental. Someone with access to security systems had helped cover Leo's tracks. What about email trails? Aisha glanced around again, then pulled out a folded piece of paper. I may have accidentally stumbled across some printouts near the copy machine. Apparently, people sometimes forget to collect their documents. The printouts were email exchanges between Renee and an address Olivia didn't recognize, organizationalsolutions@tempmail.com. The timestamps showed they'd been corresponding for 3 weeks, with the final exchange happening yesterday morning, hours before Olivia's ambush meeting. She scanned the messages quickly, her anger building with each line. Employee exhibits concerning patterns of self-promotion and corner-cutting. Observed arriving late to client meetings, then attempting to cover with excuses. Team members report feeling undermined and excluded from decision-making processes. Recommend immediate reassignment to limit damage to team morale and client relationships. Every accusation was there, laid out in corporate language that sounded professional and reasonable. Except every single claim was either a complete fabrication or a malicious interpretation of normal workplace interactions. This is him, Olivia said with her voice barely controlled. This email address, it's Leo. How can you be sure? Organizational solutions. That's exactly how he described his consulting work at lunch. I reread the messages, noting the subtle details that could only come from someone who'd been watching her closely. He knows my schedule, my client list, even internal team dynamics. Someone's been feeding him information. Or he's been gathering it himself during those mysterious building visits. Olivia thought about the security camera gaps, the corrupted footage. He had help. Someone with access to security systems, someone who could get him into the building and around the office undetected. They sat in silence for a moment, the implications settling around them like fog. What are you going to do? Aisha finally asked. I'm going to fight back. The decision crystallized as she spoke. But first, I need to know who his inside contact is. How? Olivia picked up her phone and scrolled to Leo's messages from earlier. He asked me to put in a good word for him, right? Help him get an interview at Meridian? You're not seriously considering. I'm going to tell him yes. Set up a meeting. And then I'm going to watch very carefully to see who he knows and how he knows them. Aisha looked doubtful. That's risky. What if he gets suspicious? He won't. He thinks I'm a victim, remember? Just another family member he can manipulate into helping his career. Olivia finally took a sip of her whiskey, feeling the burn ground her in the moment. Leo made a mistake when he underestimated me. He's about to learn exactly how big a mistake that was. She typed out a message. Hey, Leo, I've been thinking about your request. I'd be happy to help. Can you come in tomorrow around 2 p.m.? I'll introduce you to some key people. The response came back almost immediately. Amazing! Thank you so much, cousin. I knew I could count on family. Family. Olivia stared at the word until it lost all meaning. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., she told Aisha. I'm going to find out exactly who's been helping him destroy my career. And then I'm going to destroy theirs. The next morning, Olivia arrived at the office an hour early. She needed time to prepare, to set her trap carefully and think through every possible angle. The building was nearly empty, just the security guard and a few dedicated workaholics scattered across the 14 floors. She'd spent the night researching Leo's supposed consulting business. Organizational Solutions, LLC, existed on Peeper, a Delaware shell company registered 6 months ago with a virtual address in downtown Chicago. No website, no client testimonials, no legitimate business presence. It was a front, probably created specifically for this job. Her desk phone rang at exactly 8:30 a.m. Renee's assistant. "Miss Chen, Miss Johnson would like to see you in her office when you have a moment." When you have a moment. Corporate speak for immediately. Renee's corner office overlooked the Chicago River, floor-to-ceiling windows that on any other day would have reminded Olivia why she loved working downtown. Today, they just made her feel exposed, like she was standing in a fishbowl. "Olivia, please sit." Renee didn't look up from her computer screen. "I understand you're planning to introduce someone to the team today." The trap was already springing, and Olivia hadn't even said it yet. Someone had told Renee about Leo's visit. Someone who had been monitoring her communications or had advanced knowledge of her plans. "My cousin is interested in our industry," Olivia said carefully. "I thought it would be good networking." Renee finally looked up, her expression unreadable. "Given the current circumstances, I'm not sure it's appropriate for you to be bringing personal contacts into the office." "Is there a policy against that?" "No specific policy, but it raises questions about judgment, particularly when you're supposed to be focusing on your transition to the Henderson team." The Henderson team. Olivia had managed to forget for a few hours that she was no longer in her real job, that she was being moved to what amounted to corporate purgatory. "I understand your concern," Olivia said, "but this was arranged before yesterday's meeting. I didn't want to cancel and seem unprofessional." Renee studied her for a long moment. "Very well, but keep it brief and make sure Tanya is included in any introductions. She'll need to know who your contacts are as she takes over your accounts." Tanya. Of course. Another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. Of course, Olivia agreed. "I'll make sure she's included." The morning crawled by with excruciating slowness. Olivia found herself checking the clock every few minutes, watching for 2 p.m. like a condemned prisoner counting down to execution, except this time, she wasn't the one being executed. At 1:45 p.m., she positioned herself near the elevator bank with a clear view of the lobby. Aisha had taken a position by the coffee station, pretending to organize supplies while actually watching the security desk. Leo arrived at exactly 2 p.m., signing in with the same confident smile he'd worn yesterday. But this time, Olivia was watching for details. The way the security guard didn't check his ID against any visitor list. The casual wave he gave toward the elevator bank, as if he knew exactly where he was going. She met him at the elevator, noting how comfortable he seemed in the building. No looking around for directions, no uncertainty about which floor or which way to turn. "Thanks again for setting this up," he said as they rode to the 14th floor. "I really appreciate family looking out for family." "Of course," Olivia forced a smile. "I've arranged for you to meet a few key people. Tanya Abebe from our strategic accounts team, and maybe someone from HR. She watched his face carefully when she mentioned Tanya's name. Nothing. No recognition, no reaction. Either he was a better actor than she'd given him credit for, or Tanya wasn't his inside contact. They walked through the open office area toward the conference room Olivia had reserved. She'd chosen it specifically, glass walls on 3 sides, perfect visibility for anyone who wanted to observe without being seen. Tanya was already waiting, looking polished and professional in a way that probably impressed clients and definitely impressed upper management. She stood as they entered, extending her hand with a bright smile. "Leo Martinez. So nice to meet you. Tanya Abebe. Olivia's told me so much about you." Again, Olivia watched for any sign of recognition between them. Nothing. Their interaction looked genuinely like 2 strangers meeting for the first time.
They spent 20 minutes discussing Leo's background, his supposed consulting experience, his interest in transitioning to marketing. He was smooth, professional, hitting all the right notes about teamwork and client relationships. If Olivia hadn't known he was a fraud, she might have been impressed. "Would you mind if I stepped out for a moment?" Tanya asked. "I'd love to grab Marcus from HR. He handles our hiring process." Marcus Rivera. Olivia's pulse quickened. Marcus, who had supposedly reviewed the anonymous reports about her. Marcus, who had access to security systems and employee records. "That would be great," Leo said. "I'd love to learn more about your company culture." Tanya left, and Leo turned to Olivia with that familiar, warm smile. "She seems really sharp. How long have you worked together?" "About 2 years." Olivia kept her voice neutral. "She is very ambitious." "That's good. Ambition drives results." Leo checked his phone. "How much longer do you think this will take? I have another appointment at 4. Another appointment? Olivia wondered if that was real or just another lie in an endless chain of deception. Marcus appeared in the doorway with Tanya, and Olivia immediately knew she'd found her answer. The way Marcus's face changed when he saw Leo, not surprise, but something like relief. The subtle nod Leo gave him in return, the careful way they shook hands, like two people who knew exactly how much pressure to apply. "Leo Marquinez," Marcus said as reading from a script. "Interesting background in organizational consulting." "Thank you. I'm excited about the possibility of bringing those skills to a marketing environment." They talked for another 15 minutes about company benefits, growth opportunities, the usual HR talking points. But underneath the professional conversation, Olivia could see the real communication happening. Glances held a beat too long, phrases that seemed to carry double meanings. When the meeting ended, Marcus walked Leo to the elevator while Tanya lingered in the conference room. "Interesting guy, very polished. I can see the family resemblance." "Really? People usually say we look nothing alike." "Not physically, but there's something about the way you both approach things. Very strategic." Strategic. The word hung in the air like a challenge.
Olivia watched through the glass walls as Marcus and Leo waited for the elevator. They stood close together, speaking in low voices. When the elevator arrived, Marcus clapped Leo on the shoulder in a gesture that looked friendly but felt significant. That evening, Olivia sat in her car in the Meridian parking garage, engine off, watching Marcus Rivera load his briefcase into a silver BMW. She'd been waiting for 45 minutes, ever since she'd seen him return from what was supposed to be a routine client meeting. Her phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. "Anything yet?" "Still watching," she typed back. Marcus pulled out of his parking space and headed for the exit. Olivia waited 30 seconds, then followed, keeping several cars between them as they merged into evening traffic. She'd never followed anyone before, had no idea if she was being obvious or subtle, but Marcus seemed oblivious, driving with the casual confidence of someone who had no reason to expect surveillance. He took the Kennedy Expressway north, then exited into a neighborhood Olivia didn't recognize. Older houses, tree-lined streets, the kind of area where young professionals bought their first homes and dreamed of promotions that would let them move somewhere better. Marcus pulled into the driveway of a modest 2-story house with a small front yard and a mailbox that needed painting. Olivia drove past, then circled back and parked across the street, far enough away to avoid notice, but close enough to see the front door. She didn't have long to wait. 10 minutes after Marcus went inside, Leo's rental car pulled up to the curb. He walked to the front door without hesitation, like someone who'd been there before. Olivia pulled out her phone and started recording. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could document that they were meeting, that this wasn't a chance encounter or a professional consultation. Through the front window, she could see their silhouettes moving around what looked like a living room. At one point, Marcus handed Leo what appeared to be a manila envelope. Leo opened it, examined the contents, then nodded. Payment! It had to be. Marcus was paying Leo for services rendered, for destroying Olivia's career with carefully crafted lies and manufactured evidence. Her phone rang, startling her.
Unknown number. Hello? Olivia, it's your sister Jade. Are you okay? You sound stressed. Jade. Her younger sister, currently finishing her senior year at Northwestern. The timing was terrible, but family calls couldn't be ignored. I'm fine, just tired, long day at work. Speaking of work, the weirdest thing happened today. You know Leo, Mom's nephew? He called me asking questions about you. Olivia's blood went cold. What kind of questions? About your job, your schedule, your relationships with coworkers. He said he was planning a surprise for your birthday, but your birthday isn't for another 3 months. What did you tell him? Nothing really. I thought it was weird, so I kept it vague. But Olivia, he knew things. Like about your promotion last year and that presentation you gave to the Chicago clients. Stuff I never told him. Someone had been feeding Leo information for months, maybe longer. This wasn't a recent scheme. It was a long-term operation designed to gather intelligence and build a case against her. Listen to me, Olivia. Still watching Marcus's house. If Leo contacts you again, don't tell him anything and call me immediately. Olivia, you're scaring me. What's going on? Through the window, she could see Leo and Marcus shaking hands. The meeting was ending. I'll explain later. Just promise me you'll be careful around Leo.
I promise, but I have to go. I love you. Olivia hung up and slumped down in her seat as Leo emerged from the house. He walked to his car with a satisfied air of someone whose business had gone exactly as planned. Marcus stood in his doorway, watching Leo drive away. Even from across the street, Olivia could see the tension in his posture. This wasn't someone celebrating a successful scheme. This was someone worried about getting caught. After Leo's taillights disappeared around the corner, Marcus went back inside. Olivia waited another 10 minutes, then started her car. She had what she needed. Video evidence of Leo and Marcus meeting privately, exchanging what appeared to be payment, Jade's testimony about Leo's suspicious questioning, and the email evidence Aisha had found. It wasn't enough for a criminal case, but it might be enough to save her career. The next morning, Olivia requested a meeting with Mr. Whitaker, Meridian's CEO. His assistant tried to schedule something for the following week, but Olivia pressed. It's regarding a serious HR matter that could have legal implications for the company, she said. I think Mr. Whitaker would want to address this immediately. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in the executive conference room with Whitaker, Renee, and the company's chief legal counsel, Patricia Wong. The power dynamics were clear. Olivia alone on one side of the polished table, 3 executives on the other. Ms. Chen, Whitaker began, I understand you have concerns about your recent reassignment. I have evidence that my reassignment was based on false information provided by someone who was paid to sabotage my career. The silence that followed was deafening. Renee's face had gone pale, while Patricia leaned forward with the sharp attention of a lawyer scenting blood in the water. That's a serious accusation, Whitaker said carefully. I hope you have substantial proof. Olivia placed a folder on the table. I have video evidence of Marcus Rivera meeting privately with Leo Martinez, my cousin, and exchanging what appears to be payment. I have email records showing anonymous reports about my performance that contain information only an insider could know. And I have witness testimony that Leo has been gathering intelligence about me and my work for months. She opened the folder and spread out the printed emails, the screenshots from her video, the timeline she'd constructed showing Leo's building visits correlating with the anonymous reports. Patricia picked up the emails, scanning them quickly. These are from a temporary email address. Yes, Leo Martinez operates under the business name Organizational Solutions LLC, which is a shell company with no legitimate business operations. He was hired to discredit me so I could be removed from my position. Renee finally found her voice. This is impossible. Marcus Rivera is a respected HR professional. He would if he was being paid enough.
or if he had other reasons to want me gone. She turned to another page in her folder. I've also discovered that Marcus has been corresponding with several executive recruiters about senior HR positions at competing firms, positions that would require demonstrating cost-cutting initiatives and workforce optimization. Whitaker's expression hardened. Marcus hadn't just betrayed Olivia. He'd been planning to leave the company and take credit for improving efficiency by removing supposedly problematic employees. "Where is Marcus now?" Patricia asked. "I believe he's in his office," Olivia replied. Whitaker picked up the conference room phone. "Security, please escort Marcus Rivera to conference room A immediately, and make sure he doesn't access any computer systems on the way." They waited in tense silence. Through the glass walls, Olivia could see the normal bustle of office life continuing. People rushing to meetings, typing at computers, discussing projects over coffee. None of them knew that their company's HR director was about to be confronted with evidence of corporate sabotage. Marcus appeared in the doorway 5 minutes later, flanked by 2 security guards. His face showed confusion rather than guilt, but Olivia had learned not to trust appearances where he was concerned.
"Mr. Whitaker, is everything all right?" "Sit down, Marcus." Whitaker's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. "We need to discuss some emails you've been receiving." Patricia slid the printouts across the table. Marcus picked them up, and Olivia watched his face carefully. The moment he recognized them, his expression shifted from confusion to something that looked almost like relief. "I can explain," he said quietly. "Please do," Whitaker replied. Marcus looked around the table, his gaze settling on Olivia. "It started about 3 months ago. Leo Martinez contacted me, said he was your cousin and was concerned about your behavior at work. He said you'd been struggling with some personal issues and he wanted to make sure you got help before it affected your career." "Help?" Olivia's voice was sharp with disbelief. "He said you'd been drinking at work, missing deadlines, taking credit for other people's ideas. He provided specific examples, dates, times. It all seemed legitimate. So you decided to help by providing him with confidential employee information?" Marcus flinched. "He said he was going to stage an intervention, get you into counseling. He needed to document the issues to show you how serious they were." "And the payments?" Patricia asked. He said he'd make sure I got credit for handling the situation properly, that it would look good on my performance review." Money and career advancement, the 2 most reliable motivators for corporate betrayal. Whitaker stood slowly, his face a mask of controlled anger. "Marcus, you're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out. You have 15 minutes to collect personal items from your office, and you'll be supervised the entire time." Marcus started to protest, but Whitaker held up a hand. "Consider yourself fortunate that we're not filing criminal charges for misuse of confidential employee information." As security led Marcus away, the room fell silent again. Olivia felt a mixture of vindication and exhaustion. She'd proven her case, but the damage to her reputation and career was still there. "Ms. Chen," Whitaker said, "I owe you an apology. This should never have happened." "Thank you, sir, but I want to know what happens now. My accounts have been reassigned, my office given away. How do I get my career back?" "You'll have your office back by the end of the day. Your accounts will be returned immediately. And I think we need to have a serious conversation about compensation for what you've been put through." Renee spoke for the first time since Marcus had left. "Olivia, I'm sorry. The report seemed so detailed, so credible. I should have investigated more thoroughly before taking action." "Yes," Olivia said simply. "You should have." There would be time later to decide whether she could continue working for someone who had been so easily manipulated. For now, it was enough to know that the truth had won, that Leo's scheme had failed, and that she'd fought back successfully. The meeting ended with promises of full restoration and internal investigations. As Olivia walked back to her office, her real office, she felt something she hadn't experienced in days: hope.
But she also felt something else: anger. Leo Martinez thought he could destroy her career and then ask her for help finding a job. He'd underestimated her once. He wasn't going to get a chance to do it again. 3 days after Marcus Rivera was escorted out of Meridian Marketing in handcuffs, Olivia's mother called with an invitation she couldn't refuse. "Sunday dinner," Helen Chen announced. "The whole family. Your father's making his famous dumplings, and Leo's coming. He's been asking about you." Leo, still playing the concerned cousin card apparently, unaware that his scheme had not only failed, but had resulted in criminal charges against his conspirator. "Mom, I don't think that's a good idea right now." "Nonsense. Family is family, Olivia. Whatever little misunderstanding you two had, it can be worked out over a good meal." Little misunderstanding. If only it were that simple.
The line went dead. Olivia stared at her phone, recognizing the particular form of maternal manipulation that had shaped her childhood. In the Chen household, family loyalty wasn't negotiable. Sunday evening arrived gray and drizzling. Olivia drove to her parents' house in Naperville, past the manicured subdivisions that represented her father's version of the American dream. Leo's rental car was already there. The dining room was exactly as she had expected. Her parents at either end of the table, Jade home from Northwestern for the weekend, and Leo sitting across from where Olivia's place was set. He looked relaxed, confident, like someone who had no idea his world was about to implode. "Olivia!" He stood to hug her, the same warm smile he'd worn when he'd asked her to help him get a job at the company he'd been systematically sabotaging. "You look great. Work must be going well." "Very well, actually," she replied. "Lots of interesting developments this week." Dinner conversation started normally. Her father's latest project, Jade's upcoming midterms. Leo talked about his consulting work, spinning elaborate stories about helping companies optimize their workforce strategies. Olivia listened to him lie with practiced ease, describing fictional clients and manufactured success stories. "What about you, Olivia?" her mother asked as they finished the main course. "How are things at Meridian? Leo was telling us he met some of your colleagues this week." Here it was, the opening she'd been waiting for. "Actually, Mom, that's something I wanted to talk to everyone about. Leo and I did meet at my office this week, but it wasn't a social visit." Leo's smile faltered slightly. "Olivia's being modest. She was kind enough to introduce me to some people, help me network. Family looking out for family, right?" "Is that what you call it? Family looking out for family?" The room went quiet. Her father stopped eating, sensing the change in atmosphere. "I'm not sure what you mean," Leo said carefully. "I mean the 3 months you spent feeding my boss lies about my work performance. I mean the meetings you had with Marcus Rivera at his house, where you provided detailed fabrications about my behavior and reliability. I mean the payment you received for systematically destroying my career." The silence that followed was absolute. Her mother's face had gone pale. "Leo has been running a scheme to get me fired from my job? He created a fake consulting company, bribed someone in our HR department, and fed them false reports about my work? That's insane," Leo said, his voice rising. "Why would I do something like that?" "I was hoping you'd tell us. Because I have video of you meeting with Marcus Rivera at his house. I have email records of the false reports you sent." Leo's face had shifted from confusion to something harder, more calculating. "Even if that were true, which it's not, why would I want to hurt your career? We're family." "You asked me to help you get a job at Meridian, remember? Right after my career had been destroyed by your lies. You probably figured that with me out of the way, you could slide into a marketing position." Her mother finally found her voice.
Leo, tell me this isn't true. Leo looked around the table, seeming to calculate his options. When he spoke, his voice had lost all pretense of warmth. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I tried to get you fired. Yes, I paid that HR guy to help me. And yes, I wanted your job. The admission hit the table like a physical blow. But you know what? You had it coming. Perfect little Olivia with her perfect job and her perfect life. Do you have any idea what it's like being the family failure? So you decided to destroy what I'd worked for. I decided to level the playing field. You had advantages I never got. College fund, family connections, parents who believed in you.
Her father stood up abruptly. When he spoke, his voice carried quiet authority. Get out of my house. Uncle William, get out. Now. And don't come back. Leo stood and walked toward the front door, then paused and looked back at Olivia. By the way, the scheme worked. Even if you got your job back, everyone at that company knows you were demoted. They'll always wonder if the stories about you were true. That doubt will follow you for the rest of your career. The front door slammed with a finality that seemed to echo through the house. The week following the family dinner passed in strange, suspended quiet. Olivia threw herself back into work with focused intensity, tackling her returned accounts with the energy of someone trying to prove a point. Her colleagues treated her with a mixture of sympathy and curiosity. Some seemed genuinely glad to have her back, while others watched her with calculating interest. Tanya Ababa fell into the latter category. I have to say, Tanya commented during a team meeting Thursday morning, it's quite a story. Industrial sabotage by a family member. You could probably sell the movie rights. The comment was delivered with Tanya's usual bright smile, but there was something sharp underneath it. It's not exactly the kind of publicity I was looking for, Olivia replied evenly. Of course not, but people are talking about it. Some clients have even asked about the situation. Tanya's smile widened slightly. I assured them it was all resolved, but you know how these things can affect perception. There it was. Leo's parting shot, delivered with surgical precision. The doubt he'd planted would linger, growing like a cancer in the corporate ecosystem where reputation was everything. After the meeting, Aisha cornered Olivia by the coffee machine. She's doing it, Aisha said without preamble. Doing what? What Leo couldn't finish. Undermining your credibility, making people question whether you can handle the pressure. That afternoon, Olivia found herself in an unexpected meeting with Patricia Wong, the company's chief legal counsel. How are you settling back in? Patricia asked. Fine, thank you. Everyone's been very supportive. I wanted to discuss the ongoing legal situation with Marcus Rivera and your cousin. Marcus has agreed to plead guilty to misuse of confidential corporate information in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'll serve 6 months and pay substantial fines. And Leo. That's more complicated. The conduct occurred across state lines, and proving conspiracy charges is difficult without more direct evidence. So he gets away with it? The U.S. Attorney's Office is still investigating, but I wouldn't count on criminal charges. However, we are pursuing civil action. Financial compensation. It was something, but it wasn't justice. There's something else, Patricia continued. We've been contacted by a journalist from the Chicago Tribune. She's working on a story about corporate sabotage and family conflicts in the workplace. A journalist. The last thing Olivia needed was her family drama splashed across the business pages. What did you tell her? Nothing yet, but she's going to keep digging whether we cooperate or not. The question is whether you want to control the narrative or let her write it without your input. Olivia thought about Leo's parting words, about the doubt that would follow her, about Tanya's calculated undermining disguised as concern. Maybe it was time to stop being defensive and start being strategic. "Set up the interview," she said. "I want to tell my story." The Chicago Tribune's downtown office building was one of those Art Deco monuments to journalism's golden age, all marble lobbies and ornate elevators. Olivia met journalist Sarah Martinez in a conference room on the 8th floor. Sarah was younger than expected, probably early 30s, with the sharp-eyed intensity of someone who'd built her career on uncovering uncomfortable truths. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Sarah said, setting up a digital recorder. "I know this must be difficult." "It is, but I think the story needs to be told accurately." Sarah consulted her notes. "I've spoken with several employment lawyers who say family-based corporate sabotage is more common than people realize. Your case is unusual because of the level of sophistication involved." "Walk me through how it started," Sarah said. "When did you first realize something was wrong?" Olivia began with the morning meeting where Renee had delivered the anonymous reports, describing the shock of hearing her professional conduct characterized in ways that bore no resemblance to reality. "When did you first suspect your cousin?" "When he showed up at my office the same day I was demoted. He asked me to help him get a job at the company that had just destroyed my career based on his lies. The audacity was breathtaking." "How did he gain access to confidential information about your work?" "He bribed Marcus Rivera, our HR director. Marcus had access to security systems, employee records, meeting schedules. He could provide Leo with inside information that made the false reports seem credible." "What motivated your cousin to target you specifically?" This was the question Olivia had been dreading. "Jealousy, resentment. Leo had struggled professionally while I'd been successful, and he blamed that on advantages he thought I'd received. Rather than working to improve his own situation, he decided to tear down mine." "How did your family react when you exposed the scheme?" "My parents were horrified. They asked him to leave and told him not to come back, but the damage to family relationships is permanent. You can't unknow that someone you trusted was actively working to destroy your life." "What impact has this had on your career?" "The immediate impact was almost catastrophic. I was demoted, lost my office, nearly lost my job entirely. But there's also the longer-term damage to my reputation. Even though I've been vindicated, some people will always wonder if the original accusations had merit." The interview continued for another hour, covering the legal proceedings and broader patterns Sarah had identified in her research. "What would you say to other people who might be facing similar situations?" "Document everything, trust your instincts, and don't let family loyalty blind you to someone's true character." Olivia paused. "Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones most capable of causing damage because they have access and they have your trust." Sarah clicked off the recorder. The story should run next Sunday in the business section. As Olivia left the Tribune building, she felt a strange sense of completion. She'd told her story, controlled the narrative, turned her victimization into a cautionary tale. Walking back to her car through downtown Chicago, Olivia realized something important. She was no longer the same person who had walked into that conference room 3 weeks ago to face Renee's accusations. The betrayal had changed her, hardened her, taught her that trust was a luxury she could no longer afford to give freely. Leo Martinez had set out to destroy her career and had ended up forging her into someone stronger, smarter, and far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. 6 months later, Olivia Chen stood in her corner office overlooking the Chicago River, watching the morning commuters stream across the bridges below. The same view that had once filled her with anxiety now felt like a symbol of survival. She'd not only kept her job, she'd been promoted to senior marketing director, with Tanya Abebe reporting to her.
The Tribune article had run as promised, generating more attention than anyone had anticipated.
3 major news outlets had picked up the story, and Olivia had found herself fielding interview requests from business journalists, employment lawyers, and even a producer interested in television rights. Leo had been right about one thing. It was quite a story, but not the story he'd intended to tell. Her phone buzzed with a text from Aisha. "Conference room in 5. We have a situation." Olivia smiled as she walked toward the elevator. In the months since the scandal, Aisha had been promoted to account director, partly due to her loyalty during the crisis, and partly because Renee Johnson had developed a newfound appreciation for employees who asked hard questions and demanded evidence. The conference room was packed with her team, all looking slightly nervous except for Aisha, who wore the expression of someone about to deliver interesting news. "What's the situation?" Olivia asked, taking her seat at the head of the table. "Leo Martinez called our main number this morning. He wants to schedule a meeting with you. Says it's urgent family business." The room went quiet. Everyone on Olivia's team knew the story by now. It had become part of company lore, a cautionary tale told during new employee orientations about the importance of information security and due diligence. "Did he say what kind of family business?" Olivia asked, her voice carefully neutral. "No, but our receptionist said he sounded desperate. Apparently, he's called 3 times in the past week." Olivia leaned back in her chair, considering. She hadn't heard from Leo since the family dinner confrontation, though she kept tabs on him through various sources. The civil lawsuit had resulted in a substantial settlement, enough to make a dent in his finances, but not enough to ruin him completely. He'd been forced to dissolve his fake consulting company and had struggled to find legitimate employment once word of the scandal spread through corporate Chicago. "What do you think he wants?" asked James Hawkins, one of her newer team members. "Probably money," Tanya said from the far end of the table. Her tone was carefully professional, but Olivia caught the underlying tension. Working for someone you tried to undermine was an ongoing lesson in humility for Tanya, though she'd adapted better than expected. "Or he wants to apologize," suggested Maria Santos, the team's optimist. "Or he's planning another scheme," Aisha added darkly. Olivia stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city where she'd rebuilt her career and her reputation. The doubt Leo had warned her about had never materialized the way he'd predicted. If anything, surviving his betrayal had enhanced her credibility. Clients and colleagues saw her as someone who could handle adversity with grace and intelligence. "Schedule the meeting," she said finally, "but not here. Neutral location, and I want security present." "Are you sure that's wise?" Tanya asked. Olivia turned back to the group. "Leo destroyed my trust, but he didn't destroy my curiosity. I want to know what's so urgent that he's willing to risk another confrontation." The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at a downtown hotel restaurant, the kind of place where business deals were made and corporate secrets were shared over expensive lunches. Olivia arrived early, choosing a table with clear sightlines to all exits and positioning herself where she could see Leo before he saw her. She didn't have long to wait. Leo entered the restaurant looking older than his 32 years, his hair disheveled and his suit wrinkled in a way that suggested financial stress. He scanned the room nervously before spotting her, then approached with the hesitant steps of someone who wasn't sure his welcome. "Olivia," he said, stopping a few feet from the table, "thank you for agreeing to see me. Sit down, Leo. You said it was urgent." He took the chair across from her, his hands fidgeting with a manila envelope he'd brought. Up close, she could see the toll the past months had taken on him. Dark circles under his eyes, a nervous tick in his left cheek, the pallor of someone who'd been spending too much time indoors. "I need your help," he said without preamble. "My help?" Olivia's voice was flat. "That's interesting. I know how it sounds, after everything I did, after the way things ended with the family, but you're the only one who might understand." "Understand what, exactly?"
Leo opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of papers. "I'm being blackmailed." Despite herself, Olivia felt a spike of interest. By whom? "I don't know. Someone who knows about what I did to you, about Marcus, about the whole scheme. They're demanding money to keep quiet." "Quiet about what? The story's already public. Everyone knows what you did." "Not everything." Leo's voice dropped to a whisper. "There were other companies, other employees. You weren't my first target." The admission hit Olivia like a physical blow. She'd assumed her case was isolated, personal. The idea that Leo had made a career out of destroying people's lives was almost incomprehensible. How many others? 5 companies over 3 years. Always the same pattern. Identify a successful employee with family connections, gather intelligence, feed false information to management, then position myself to take their place or profit from their downfall. And you were successful? 3 times. The other 2 times I couldn't get inside access, so I moved on. Leo's hands were shaking now. But someone knows. They have documentation, recordings, evidence of all of it. If this comes out, I'll face federal charges for conspiracy and wire fraud. She stared at him, processing the implications. Leo hadn't just betrayed her. He'd built an entire criminal enterprise around family manipulation and corporate sabotage. What do you want from me? Help me figure out who's doing this. You're good at investigation, at putting pieces together. You proved that when you caught me. Why would I help you? You destroyed my career, my family relationships, my sense of trust in the people closest to me. Because if I go down for this, it'll all come out. Every detail, every victim, every method I used. Your name will be attached to a federal conspiracy case. Even though you were the victim, the media attention will follow you for years. There it was. The real threat. Not just Leo's downfall, but the potential for renewed scandal that could undo all the reputation rebuilding she'd accomplished. Olivia sat quietly for a long moment, weighing her options. She could walk away, let Leo face the consequences of his actions alone. But she could also use this opportunity to ensure that justice was served properly, that other victims were identified and compensated. "I'll make you a deal," she said. "I'll help you identify your blackmailer, but on my terms." "What terms?" "Full disclosure. I want the names of every company you targeted, every employee you sabotaged, every person you paid off. I want documentation of all of it." "Why?" "Because those people deserve to know what happened to them. They deserve justice, compensation, closure. You're going to help me give them that." Leo's face went pale. "If I do that, I'll definitely face federal charges. You're probably going to face them anyway. But this way, you might get some consideration for cooperating, for helping make things right. And if I refuse..." Olivia stood and gathered her purse. "Then you can deal with your blackmailer alone, and when the federal charges inevitably come, you'll face them without any sympathy from the people you destroyed." She walked toward the restaurant exit, then paused and looked back. "You have 48 hours to decide, Leo. After that, I'm out of your life forever, and you can handle whatever comes next on your own." As she stepped onto the busy Chicago sidewalk, Olivia felt a strange sense of completion. Not closure, that would take much longer to achieve, but a final understanding of who Leo Martinez really was and what she was willing to do about it. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. "Dinner this Sunday? Your mother misses you." Olivia smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." Some families are worth fighting for. Others are worth fighting against. The key was knowing the difference.